In this Diablo 4 video, I'm going to be showing you the Pyromancer Perfected build. This is a level 70 plus Sorceress build that's aimed at World Tier 4 and is a continuation of our earlier Pyromancer build. Fex put this build together because she loves the fire effects of the game and wanted to recreate the classic Diablo 2 Fireball build where possible. The result is a really fun and interactive build that gives you a lot of active gameplay rather than relying on one skill mindlessly. You'll feel powerful, you'll clear endgame content with ease, but you'll also be engaged and put on an amazing show while doing it. This is an advanced version of our level 50 Pyromancer Sorcerer with some key differences based mainly around the focus of your skill allocation and the optimization of the gear you should use. The advanced Paragon boards bring in extra damage and survivability that you really need. Your gameplay will be rather simple. Summon your 2 Hydras to start a fight, round up a large group of enemies, then use your meteors until your mana runs out, and if there are elites, use Inferno to stick them in place and rain free meteors while your mana regenerates. Get out of tough spots using Flame Shield while leaving your enemies immobilized, burning and exploding behind, then calmly blow them up some more from afar. And if you run into fast mobs that are moving out of your meteors, use the Fireball skill to quickly take them down. The Fire Sorcerer is an excellent option for those that want to clear a room quickly and with a bang, and it also plays very well with friends, as your Fireball enchantment will apply to any enemy your party is facing and create explosions even when your friends get the kills. This build is simple to set up and has a wide variety of options to further improve it, making it a good choice for both players that are just starting with Tier 4 and those engaged in the endgame grind. Once you hit Tier 4, you'll want to start thinking about min-maxing to get the most out of your build, and that starts with skills. Our skill choices are very similar to the Pyromancer level 50, with specific adjustments based on how the endgame actually plays. The most important part of skill selection is that this build, as all the builds I make, are flexible. If you're just starting and can't find specific gear and want to put a point into a shield, do it. You can swap it later. If you want to only put 3 points into Hydra and unlock Teleport and Ice Armor with those points, you can do that too. The objective was to create and demonstrate an exclusively Fire Sorc that was viable at this point in the game, so I've focused and redoubled on Fire only, but the build will work even if you change small aspects. And of course, keep in mind your skill points should also move if you don't have all of them yet and have found equipment with the skill. For example, if you're trying to build this from the start of the game, or if you're missing reputation skill points, you can find a headpiece with plus Hydra, and then you could not put extra points into Hydra yet and up your meteor damage first, etc. The skill allocation speaks for itself, and you will be mostly using your Hydras to nip away at enemies and lucky hit meteors, your meteors for heavy damage, and your Fireball for small groups or fast-moving targets. Whatever you do, don't sleep on your Flame Shield. It's an incredibly powerful CC breaker that we'll take advantage of to live through dungeons many levels above us. Talking a bit about enchantments, the Sorceress enchantment system is full of opportunity and can also be very tempting for opportunistic assignment. You may get a piece of gear with a free firewall that we did not put any points in, and it may slot beautifully into your build. The same can be said for Ice Armor, Frost Nova, Teleport, etc. That said, you absolutely must put one of the enchantments as Fireball. This enchantment is very powerful and the key binding aspect behind the build's burst room clearing capabilities. Fireball detonations on enemy death scale to the point of creating amazing chain reactions that can actually decimate multiple simultaneous groups of enemies, and it looks great. For the second enchantment, if you want to stick to our recommendation, you'll use Meteor. There's an 8% chance of a meteor on a lucky hit, but it can be triggered by your 2 Hydras that have fantastic attack speed, so it'll actually end up being a lot more if you've invested into Lucky Hit where possible. You should. This is a good mechanic for the Sorcerer. Moving on to equipment. Equipment is the most important part of any endgame build, and it's important to understand that it's a long-term goal. You won't have all Paragon boards available right away, and getting all uniques will probably take a lot of farming, so try to use legendary aspects to adjust your needs whilst you farm levels and better gear. The current build is making use of 0 unique items. There are some that can be used for good synergies, but in practice, they can be very rare drops, have bad rolls, or you may get a god tier item some other way. As a general note though, try to prioritize mana cost reduction, fire, pyromancy, and conjuration damage, and damage reduction from different sources. Another important thing you'll notice is that when looking for your stats, you want to make sure you're fulfilling your Paragon rare node requirements. Some rare nodes have very high requirements, and equipment is what allows you to fulfill them. These bonuses often double the rare node effect, so for example, getting an equipment piece with plus 100 intelligence might unlock 1 or more node bonuses, giving you a massive bonus as a result. Up first is Helmet. On the helmet, we'll want Aspect of the Protector. Damaging an elite enemy grants you a barrier absorbing X damage for 10 seconds. This effect can happen only once every 30 seconds. You want to have a high roll on this to maximize the usefulness of this barrier. You will engage elites all the time, and 30 seconds is a quick cooldown, plus 10 seconds is usually enough to decimate an elite group. Affixes you want to look out for on this are Intelligence, Willpower, Dexterity, Life on Kill, Maximum Life, plus to Hydra, and plus to Total Armor. For your chest, you'll use the Aspect of the Unwavering. Taking direct damage has up to a 6% chance to reset the cooldown of one of your defensive skills. This is invaluable for this build, as any direct damage you take may reset your Flame Shield cooldown, giving you an immunity bubble, unstoppable, and plus 10% damage for 4 seconds. Affixes you want to look out for are plus damage, plus conjuration skill damage, plus pyromancy or fire damage, plus stats, plus damage reduction from anything, and plus total armor. On gloves, you want the legendary Aspect of the 3 Curses. This makes it so that Meteor deals percentage increased critical strike damage against healthy targets. Healthy targets are any targets above 80% health. This is a relatively situational aspect, as its main impact will be the hit of your first Meteor, as targets won't be healthy for the second barrage. That said, it helps create a quicker death for weaker mobs who will then explode for AoE damage, hopefully helping you start your chain reaction of death. Affixes you want are critical strike chance, fireball, intelligence, willpower, dexterity, attack speed, and lucky hit chance for heals or mana regeneration. I want to make a note here that you shouldn't use the Gloves of the Illuminator, the unique gloves for the Sorcerer here, which now makes fireballs bounce as it travels, exploding each time it hits the ground, but the explosion deals percentage less damage. This bonus is so bad it's laughable. It will nerf your fireball by a ridiculous amount and creates an almost comical bouncing effect that is so terribly underwhelming, our entire Twitch chat was rolling on the floor about Super Mario fireballs. For your waist, you want Aspect of Disobedience. You gain up to 0.5% increase to armor for 4 seconds when you deal any form of damage, stacking up to 50%. This is essentially a big boost to your survivability, but you want to get a high roll to really make it count. You'll be dealing damage constantly and greatly benefit from it. Affixes you want to look out for are plus Meteor, plus damage reduction from any type, and plus stats. For boots, you'll want the Ghostwalker Aspect. While unstoppable and for 4 seconds after, you gain up to 25% increased movement speed and can move freely through enemies. This aspect greatly increases your movement speed every time your Flame Shield pops. In addition, it will allow you to freely move through enemies, so you can use Flame Shield to break CC, and this aspect will allow you to move away from the spot. Alternatively, you can use the aspect of Binding Embers, which makes it so that Flame Shield lets you move unhindered through enemies, and enemies you move through while Flame Shield is active are immobilized for up to 3 seconds. This immobilized can be very useful for making sure nothing chases you away from the group. Another option here is the unique piece of equipment, Penitent Greaves. These greaves provide a massive boost to movement speed. On top of that, its unique power leaves a trail of frost behind you, chilling enemies. Enemies that are chilled will move and attack slower, and if they stand on top of the chill for too long, they'll freeze. Moving along to our staff, you'll want a 2-handed staff, and the aspect you want is Aspect of Armageddon. This aspect makes it so a hail of meteorites falls during Inferno, dealing fire damage on impact. It also makes it so your meteorites immobilize enemies for 3 seconds. If you don't have this one or you want a different one, another good choice is Aspect of the Shattered Stars. This makes it so meteorites fall around Meteor, dealing fire damage on impact. Your meteorites additionally burn enemies they hit for X damage over X seconds. You need both aspects for this build, so decide which goes on Amulet and which one goes on your weapon based on the ones that have rolled better. Your weapon is super important for your damage output, so make sure to look for something that has high DPS and good rolls to the following. Intelligence, you're looking to get a roll of 100 plus, which you will upgrade to over 170. All stats, you're looking to get a roll of 50 plus, which you'll upgrade to about 75. Plus damage to core skills, or plus damage to distant or close enemies depending on your preferred playstyle. I also want to talk about the unique staff, Staff of the Endless Rage here. That is a good but not good enough unique, because despite the nice fireball bonus, the fixed stats on the staff do nothing to boost your Paragon, and the DPS rolls on the unique can be rather disappointing. You can use it as a placeholder, but I would always prioritize a stat-heavy rolled rare that we customize. If you opt for this staff, you'll have to sacrifice one synergy aspect, as the weapon slot is only shared with your gloves or jewelry. For Amulet, you'll use Aspect of Armageddon, which I just mentioned, or Aspect of Shattered Stars, whichever you wish. Affixes you'll look out for is plus to Inner Flames passive, plus rank to all conjuration skills, plus ranks to all defensive skills, or plus to pyromancy skill damage. For your first ring, you'll use the Serpentine aspect. This makes it so that you can have an additional Hydra active, but Hydra's duration is reduced. Your Hydras are going to put in great work dealing passive damage and triggering lucky hit free meteors, so to maximize the use of your resources, make sure to get a good roll on this one to benefit from their duration. Affixes you want to look out for are plus damage to burning enemies, plus damage, plus fire damage, plus critical strike chance, plus resource regeneration, or plus damage to close or distant enemies depending on your playstyle. And for the second ring, you'll want either Aspect of the Inner Calm, which increases the damage you deal each second you stand still up to 30%. You want to roll 9 or 10% for it to be worth it, but this aspect adds 30% after 3 seconds of standing still, which is completely doable if you're managing your positioning and make good use of your barrier and flame shield. It will also pile onto the 10% damage increase we get after using Flame Shield, making your Inferno and Meteor Shower combo truly deadly. Or you can use Aspect of Ancient Flame, which makes it so while both bonuses from Essu's Ferocity key passive are active, your attack speed is increased by up to 50%. This is a more situational aspect, but you may want to use it here or on your gloves instead of Aspect of the 3 Curses. You can experiment with both or use the one you've gotten better rolls on. Any fixes you want are the same as the previous ring. For gems, you want amethysts on your weapon to increase your damage over time from your burning. On armor, you want rubies to boost your maximum life for your barriers. And on jewelry, you want skulls to boost your defense value because resistance are not working that well right now and having flat armor is actually better. When it comes to Paragon boards, we are mainly going to aim for rare nodes that increase our damage output as well as glyphs that synergize with our build. Please note that the order in which I get the nodes is just a general guideline and you can adjust it to your current needs. On the first Paragon board, you'll want to take the rare node on the right and head up toward the glyph socket. We will be completely ignoring any elemental resistance nodes as they are useless when compared to flat % damage reduction ones available further up your board. On the glyph socket, you'll want to slot the warding glyph and eventually assign 25 willpower around it. The normal effect will boost the damage rare nodes above, while the bonus effect will give you extra damage reduction based on your mana. If you're doing okay for survival, you can ignore the second bonus until you have points to spare. Continue up the left of the board through the non-physical damage node, grab the ones around it too, and then unlock your second board. Your second board is going to be Searing Heat. On this board, you'll want to rotate it until you have the Pyromancy rare node on the bottom side, as this will be the first node you'll want to take before getting the board's legendary slot. Take the fire damage rare nodes and then head up to the Searing Heat legendary node that increases your Fireball and Meteor critical strike chance. From here, you'll head up and make a diversion to the left and grab the rare node Keeper of Flames that reduces your damage taken from burning enemies. You'll then go back a few slots and head right the opposite way to unlock Combustion and increase your fire damage and critical strike damage. Continue upward toward the glyph slot where we will use Adept to improve our mastery skill damage. You need to grab some intelligence slots around this area for it to get its full benefit, so do that before heading up toward the flame-touched rare glyph that also boosts mastery and damage, and finally left toward the gate. For the third board, you'll be using Burning Instinct. You'll want to rotate the board until you have the Smoldering Embers rare node and glyph slot on the bottom left side. Head straight for it and take it in combination with its damage magic nodes. From there, head upwards to the glyph slot and use Tactician and make sure that you add enough dexterity and range to use the glyph's bonuses that gives you plus 10% damage for 4 seconds every time you use a defensive skill. This has a great synergy with your Flame Shield, which should be coming off cooldown often, giving you very useful and consistent boosts. From here, head left and obtain the Cinders node that increases your damage to burning enemies and your intelligence. These bonuses can be greatly boosted by upgrading Tactician. There are now 2 rare nodes we want, and they are in different directions. You can head to one and then to the other and optimize your path based on what stat slots you prefer to use, and whether you plan to exit to the next board through the left like we will. Your first target is Kindling, which gives damage to burning enemies and more importantly damage versus elites. Take the other damage nodes around it, and these are quite important. Your second target is Safeguard, which gives you damage reduction versus elites, greatly improving your survivability in high level dungeons. Now on to the legendary node, go through Keeper of the Flames to further improve your damage reduction versus burning enemies, then grab Burning Instinct to improve your burning damage based on your intelligence. This is why getting those big intelligence rolls on your staff can be super important. For your fourth Paragon board, you'll either want Enchantment Master or Elemental Summoner. These boards are not currently used in the build footage as they are beyond the level that I am currently. However, this is a build meant to keep growing, so my guidance is to pick one of these two based on your preferences and feel of how your build is coming together. Enchantment Master should be rotated to get Ruinous, which gives plus non-physical damage and damage to elites. The legendary bonus on this board is not very impactful, as it gives you plus 20% enchantment effect. Taking this node would boost your Fireball enchantment damage from 50% to 60% and your chance to trigger a meteor from 8% to 10%. Not a huge chance for either, so you can opt out of this and continue on to another board. The other good nodes in Enchantment Master are Suffused Resilience because it reduces the damage over time you take, and Elementalist because it increases your non-physical damage and 4% of your max life. The Elemental Summoner board is next up and can be quite good for making your Hydras work harder for you. The legendary node here is really underwhelming, so you would rotate the board to get Reservoir and Conjurer near your gate. Reservoir gives your extra mana and plus 4% maximum life, while Conjurer will increase your conjuration damage and intelligence. Another great node on this board is Swift Conjurer, as it also increases attack speed in addition to giving more conjuration damage. The remaining useful nodes are Keeper of the Elements and Fleeting, but they are far away and you may be better served by using points to improve socketed nodes that you like. Final tips. Setting out to play a sorceress that is not focused on movement speed and has no teleport is probably a strange idea for many veteran players, but it really does work. Your boots can give you many evades, I currently have 4, which work quite as good as teleport and don't eat your resources. Your playstyle should be focused on rounding up enemies to trigger satisfying chain reactions as the weaker ones die, taking out the larger ones while you calmly stand and cast. Make sure not to overdo your movements. Your mana cost reduction and damage boosts are counting on you standing still for a few seconds. So summon your Hydras, drop your meteors, then Inferno Elites into place, and shower down more deadly meteors on them from safely in your Flame Shield. If you're struggling to get aspects and gear, remember that you can gamble for sacred and ancestral gear at the Curiosities vendor, and you can run legions and Helltime mystery chests with the help of randoms on the server. Overall, your drops seem to improve as you level, so don't worry if ancestrals are not coming in right away once you hit level 70. Remember to craft and drink precision elixirs, which increase both critical strike chance and critical strike damage, further boosting the build performance. This build shines when you're facing large quantities of enemies, so try to run dungeons with tight corridors and big packs, and whatever you do, never run a nightmare dungeon that has minus fire damage or minus burning on enemies. So that wraps up our Pyromancer Perfected build. I hope you guys found this helpful and useful. We do have more builds coming this week. We have another Rogue build and another Necromancer build lined up, as well as a Paragon guide coming, so stay tuned for those.